You just paid $10 for a Big Mac meal. That $10 did not go to McDonald's. Not most of it. Not at first. Not even close. Here's the thing almost nobody understands about the biggest fast food company on earth. McDonald's Corporation barely sells hamburgers anymore. Out of more than 45,000 restaurants wearing the golden arches, the company itself operates roughly 1 in 20 of them. The other 95% are owned by independent business people who paid McDonald's for the right to use the name and who then pay McDonald's again every single month for the rest of their careers. So when you hand over that $10, you're not buying into a burger company. You're stepping into a machine that was built to extract money at every layer between you and the corporation. And by the end of this video, you will never look at a McDonald's the same way again. Let's follow the dollar. Your $10 lands in the register of a single restaurant. Legally, that restaurant almost certainly is not McDonald's Corporation. It's owned by a franchisee, a local business person who signed a contract, put up serious capital, and agreed to run that store under McDonald's rules for the next 20 years. That franchisee now has your money. And before McDonald's corporate ever sees a cent of it, that money has to survive a gauntlet. Here's the twist most people miss. The total sales generated across every McDonald's restaurant in the world, what the company calls system-wide sales, hit $139.4 billion in 2025. That is the number most people associate with McDonald's. But that is not McDonald's revenue. That money belongs to the franchisees first. McDonald's has to claw its share out of it, layer by layer, and that is where this story really starts. Before your $10 becomes profit for anybody, it gets attacked from every direction. Food and paper costs come first, the beef, the buns, the packaging, the fries, then labor, the crew making your order, and the manager running the shift, then occupancy, because, as you're about to find out, that restaurant almost certainly does not own its own building. Then, utilities, equipment maintenance, insurance, credit card processing fees, and the technology costs that keep the kiosks and the mobile app running. By the time all of that is subtracted, the franchisee is left with a sliver of your original $10. And out of that sliver, they still owe McDonald's Corporation money. Twice, but that is not where the money goes next. To understand why, you have to understand something most customers never stop to think about. McDonald's is not primarily in the burger business. It is in the franchising business. And that distinction is about to make a lot more sense. Here is the reveal. At the end of 2025, approximately 95% of McDonald's restaurants worldwide were franchised. The company operates the rest directly, mostly as training locations and testing grounds for new ideas before they get rolled out across the whole system. That 95% number is the entire business model. McDonald's figured out decades ago that it does not need to flip burgers to make money from burgers. It needs franchisees to flip the burgers. And it needs a contract that guarantees McDonald's gets paid regardless of how the burger business is going that particular week. In 2025, McDonald's Corporation reported $16.548 billion in revenue specifically from franchised restaurants. That figure is separate and distinct from the 9. $69 billion in sales generated by the roughly 2,000 restaurants the company still runs itself. Two completely different businesses sitting inside the same balance sheet. One where McDonald's takes on all the operational risk and the daily headaches, and one where somebody else does. And this is where McDonald's becomes very different from a normal restaurant chain. Restaurant sales and McDonald's corporate revenue are not the same number. You can spend $10 at the counter, and only a few cents of it ever legally belong to the corporation. The rest belongs to the franchisee, until specific contractual pieces get pulled back out of it. Becoming a McDonald's franchisee is not cheap, and it is not easy. The total initial investment for a new U.S. restaurant typically runs somewhere between roughly $1.5 million and $2.5 million, and McDonald's generally expects applicants to have several $100,000 in liquid, non-borrowed capital before they'll even be considered. That money buys the franchisee the right to operate under the McDonald's name for a standard 20-year term. It does not buy them the land, it does not buy them the building. Both of those, in most cases, stay with McDonald's Corporation. This wasn't an accident. Decades ago, McDonald's realized that the real long-term money in fast food wasn't in the burgers at all. It was in controlling the real estate underneath the restaurants. By acquiring the land and buildings, or securing long-term leases on them, and then charging franchisees rent on top of the franchise fee, the company built a second, more stable revenue stream sitting quietly underneath the first one. franchisees take on the volatile part of the business, the food costs, the staffing, the day-to-day headaches. McDonald's takes the steady part, the rent check that arrives every month no matter what. Now here is the part that changes how you see the entire company. McDonald's is not just your franchisor. In the vast majority of conventional franchise arrangements, McDonald's is also your landlord. Under a typical arrangement in the United States, McDonald's generally owns or controls a long-term lease on the land and the building itself. The franchisee does not buy the real estate. They rent it from McDonald's, on top of paying for the right to use the brand. As of the end of 2025, McDonald's owned roughly 56% of the land and about 80% of the buildings underneath its restaurants across its core markets. Think about what that actually means. A franchisee can spend well over $1 million building out a restaurant, hiring a crew, and stocking inventory and still not own the ground it's sitting on. McDonald's collects rent on that property every single month for the length of a 20-year agreement, whether the franchisee has a great year or a terrible one. McDonald's makes money from the restaurant business and the property underneath it, at the same time, from the same location. This is genuinely one of the most consequential decisions in the history of retail. It's often described as the moment McDonald's stopped thinking of itself purely as a burger company and started thinking of itself as a real estate company that happens to sell burgers. So the franchisee's dollar is now being pulled apart two separate ways: rent and royalties. The royalty is the fee franchisees pay for the right to use the McDonald's system itself. The brand, the operating playbook, the supply chain relationships, the marketing machine behind it all. It's calculated as a percentage of the restaurant's gross sales. And on top of that, franchisees also contribute separately to a national advertising fund that keeps the commercials running. Here's the chain, in order. The customer pays the restaurant. The restaurant pays occupancy and labor costs. What's left gets split between the franchisee's own profit and two separate payments flowing back up to McDonald's corporate, rent, and royalty. Of the 16, $548 billion in total franchised revenue McDonald's collected in 2025, the majority, more than $10 billion by the company's typical rent-to-royalty ratio, came from rent alone, with royalties making up roughly $6 billion. Rent is the bigger number, not royalties, not the burgers. Rent, now zoom out from one single restaurant to the entire global system. One customer's $10 becomes one restaurant's daily sales. One restaurant's sales become one franchisee's annual revenue. Multiply that by more than 43,000 franchised restaurants spread across over 100 countries, and you get $129.7 billion in franchise sales flowing through the system in 2025 alone. Money that belongs to franchisees first, with McDonald's carving its rent and royalty out of every single one of those transactions, every day, forever. This is the part that's easy to say and genuinely hard to picture. McDonald's built a business where tens of thousands of independent entrepreneurs each take on the risk of hiring staff, buying beef, and dealing with a bad location, while McDonald's collects a contractually guaranteed cut, regardless of how any individual restaurant performs on any given day. Multiply thin margins by tens of thousands of locations, and thin margins stop being thin. Comparable sales, the number that measures how existing restaurants are performing year over year, grew 3.1% globally in 2025. That single percentage point might sound small sitting on a page, but spread across a system doing 139. $4 billion in system-wide sales, it translates into billions of additional dollars flowing through the exact same rent and royalty structure we just walked through. This is the quiet advantage of the franchise model. McDonald's does not need every single restaurant to have a great year. It just needs the average, across tens of thousands of locations on 6 continents, to keep drifting upward, and the rent and royalty checks take care of the rest. And the system keeps getting bigger. McDonald's opened over 2,200 new restaurants in 2025 alone, and the company has said publicly that it's targeting 50,000 restaurants worldwide by the end of 2027. Every single one of those new locations is another rent check and another royalty stream added to the machine. Nearly 29,000 of those restaurants have a drive-thru, more than any competitor on the planet, and roughly 90% of the entire system now offers delivery. None of that is an accident either. Every extra channel, every extra lane, every extra way to order is another way to keep the transactions flowing through a system that was engineered, from the ground up, to take its cut no matter which door the money comes through. There is another piece of the puzzle, and it's small in dollar terms today, but revealing about where this entire business is heading next. McDonald's other revenues line hit $647 million in 2025, more than 50% higher than the year before. That bucket includes fees franchisees pay to help cover the cost of McDonald's technology and digital platforms, the app, the loyalty program, the ordering kiosks, along with revenue from licensing the McDonald's brand onto consumer products sold outside the restaurants entirely. It's a small slice of the overall pie right now, but it's the fastest growing slice, and it tells you where McDonald's believes the next era of its business actually gets built. Not on more burgers, but on more data, more digital engagement, and a loyalty program the company says now reaches roughly 210 million active users worldwide. Here's a number that sounds enormous and isn't the whole story. McDonald's reported $885 billion in total revenue in 2025. That figure combines the franchised fees, the sales generated by its own company-operated restaurants, and that smaller other revenue bucket, all added together into one headline number. But revenue is not profit. Before that $26.885 billion becomes money McDonald's actually gets to keep. It still has to cover the cost of running its own restaurants, corporate salaries, marketing, interest payments on billions of dollars in debt, and taxes. After every one of those bills gets paid, McDonald's 2025 operating income came in at $12.4 billion, and net income, the true bottom line, was $8.563 billion. So of that headline, 26. $9 billion figure, roughly 2/3 of it gets consumed before it ever reaches a shareholder. Let's go back to your original $10, one final time. By the time it has worked its way through the entire system, food costs, labor, occupancy paid to a franchisee who is not McDonald's, rent paid up to McDonald's, royalty paid up to McDonald's, and McDonald's own corporate expenses subtracted from what's left, the fraction of your original $10 that becomes pure McDonald's profit is small, genuinely small. And that is the entire point. McDonald's was never built to make its money by selling you a burger for a thin margin, the way an ordinary restaurant does. It was built to get paid twice, guaranteed, by thousands of other people who are the ones taking on the actual risk of selling that burger to you. So here's the question worth sitting with the next time you're standing in line. Who are you actually paying? You're paying a franchisee for your food. You're paying that franchisee's landlord, who happens to also be their franchisor, who happens to also be the exact same brand on the sign glowing above your head. All three of those are the same company, collecting from three different directions on the exact same transaction, at the exact same moment, every single time you walk through the door. McDonald's did not build a $27 billion revenue business by getting better at making burgers. It built that business by constructing a system where nearly everyone else absorbs the operational risk, while the corporation gets paid first, guaranteed, no matter what happens on the other side of the counter. The fries are just the reason you walked in the door in the first place. The burger got you to the counter. The rent, the royalty, and the brand are what actually built the company.